Does anyone know what time it is? For real. Hammer time! It's 11 past. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah!
Oh man, it's a long time ago. I mean, it's been 10 years. Like, we'd always had a really good, like, sort of response from the crowd. The live show had always been sort of high energy and energetic. So we'd already built a pretty, a decent fan base, which is nothing like it is now. Like, it's much better now, obviously, but they've always been pretty good sort of live shows. And obviously back then, you start now, you don't really know what you're doing. And we're a way better unit now. Obviously, it's a whole different lineup. You know, Cam's the only one that's still in the band now. But yeah, I don't know. There were good shows. Like, there were some good times. But yeah, and it's basically just naivety back then. You know, like. So there was a few various people that came and went, but those original four were Ryan Sumich, Mike Zukos, and Jared Thornton. That was the original first lineup of All This Filth. And the songwriting process, I mean, we were all sort of really young, so we sort of just got in a room and sort of jammed out ideas. Someone would be like, I got a riff, or I got a drum beat, or I'd go, I've got an idea, I need the riff to be like this, the drums to be like this, no, I want to do vocals like that. So yeah, that's sort of how it happened, sort of really organic in the beginning, you know, just a bunch of young guys getting together, getting into a room and jamming songs out and stuff. We would write like 5-6 songs and then go play a bunch of gigs, because that's what we wanted to do. There was no like, yeah, we got to get into the studio. It was more like, we got to get on stage, get out there playing gigs and stuff. Our first gig was in 2008, October of 2008. Can't remember the exact date, maybe the 8th or the 10th or something. And we played at the Railway Hotel in Fremantle with Reaper's Riddle, Freight Train, and Encounter. It was a bit of a mixed bill, but yeah, it was a good night. It went pretty well. But yeah, we just sort of wrote a bunch of songs, got out there, played gigs, and then like wrote in between playing gigs as well. And then started recording 11 Past in the year 2010, yeah, 2010. Yeah, at the Gurk Studios. We had no idea what we were doing, like none. So yeah, the album was pretty raw, a bit loose. As much as I liked the songs, the recording process was pretty new and pretty brutal. We got found out pretty quick in the studio. You know, it took a lot longer than it should have, because we weren't really like, it was our first time sort of recording to click tracks and stuff. So that was a bit like, you know, it set us back a bit, and then obviously the budget goes up and we're like, oh, you know, so the stress got to everyone. But there was some good times in there as well. Like, you know, there was some funny stories.
There's no hope, salvation at the end of a road. With never past testing a choice. Are you so dead inside? Haven't slept in such a long time. Demon control my mind. Take a look, what left on.
I have always sort of struggled with my own mental health, and at the time I was going through a lot of insomnia. Like, there'd be weeks where I wouldn't sleep properly at all. Like, I'd be awake, like wouldn't even get a couple hours a night sort of thing. Like, you know, for days and days at a time I'd like not sleep. And when I was sort of in bed, sort of tossing and turning, I'd look at the time, and the time would always be 11 past the hour. So it'd be 11 past 3 in the morning, and then I'd check it again, 11 past 4. And then even during the day it started happening, I'd be out and about, I'd look at the clock and it'd be 11 past the hour, you know, whatever hour it was always 11 past the hour. So I wrote the song about that, just sort of, the song's basically about me losing my mind, you know? And I guess, like, I don't know, we sort of voted on the album title, and that was the one that we went with. We were like, it's not, like I said, it's not like we had a plan, we're like, we're gonna call the album this. We just were like, that's a cool song. It's funny, because it was actually the last song written for the album as well. We wrote that song while we were in the studio, basically. I remember sitting there, at Bergurk Studios and just writing lyrics while we were recording the actual songs. And while we were recording, I didn't really have an idea for the artwork. A lot of the time I don't have an idea visually of what we're going to do. And I don't know, it came to me eventually, and I just was like, because there's a lot of themes in the album are about sort of the destruction of the world and basically how fucked up things are in the world. That was the main theme, like how things are fucked up in my head, but like also in the world. And so there's a lot of stuff about that, about how we're destroying the earth, and I just thought like, we'll have this sort of post-apocalyptic sort of album cover. So we sort of just released it. It went like, we got some good reviews, we got some bad reviews, but overall it was a positive response to it. But we played a bunch of shows. But yeah, again, we didn't know what we were doing, so we just put it out there and just hope for the best without realizing that you should really be, promoting it, hitting up media and all that sort of stuff. I feel like it was the album that needed to be made then to sort of really, it put us through our paces. Like, it took a lot of determination to get the album finished, because there was a lot of stuff, like, we ended up taking it, like, we were working with Al Smith, and then at some point, I went and recorded the vocals myself, because I was at SAE at the time, studying audio engineering, so I knew a bit by that stage. Beforehand, before we started recording, I knew nothing about recording, but then by the time we sort of finished it, I knew a bunch about recording, because I was at, SAE Institute doing audio engineering. And I went with a friend of mine from class, Reese Decky, and we recorded the vocals ourselves, because I hadn't really captured it, and there were some good songs, but our performances on the recordings, aside from maybe the guitars were pretty good, but our performances on the recording I wasn't really happy with, especially my vocal performance. Like, it is what it is, and like, a lot of people like the album, but like, it was definitely a transition for me personally, and just like all the hardships we went through, I guess, it's sort of, I don't know, I think it's sort of, forged in fire sort of thing comes to mind. It's like, when you go through that, you're like, right, cool, you know what to expect next time.
Die!